Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the live show of Perspective Magazine. Today we are going to narrate a very important idea and a very important thought, actually, namely power of bonding and non-Western emerging great powers, soft power strategies. And for describing this very issue, today we have our guest with us, Mr. Dr. Nazmul Islam, Assistant Professor of Political Science and Head of Turkey, Asia and Indo-Pacific Studies, Ankara Yildirim Beyazit University, Turkey. Uh, Brother Nazmul Islam, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, so how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you very much. The topic that have been selected for today's discussion is about power of bonding and non-Western emerging great powers, soft power strategies. It's a vital topic, I think, but maybe not very common among the people of Asian subcontinent because the way it works and the way it is discussed in the world, maybe people of this content are not clear about this very issue. So, um, for clarifying this idea, the first question that I'd like to ask you is: could you please define soft power, smart power, and hard power, and why it is important in contemporary world politics?
Okay, thank you so much, Engineer Naeem. And I would like to thanks to the team of Perspective to invite me this prestigious program. I'm sure. I hope I would be pleased to share the important things which are really, really important to understand the international collaboration, cooperation, or engagement perspectives, especially when we're talking about foreign policy. So, a country, when they're making their policy to make relations with others, what kind of strategy they are following, and what is their perspective, why they need to take that kind of strategy, do they have any specific objectives, do they really need to make their cooperation from different kind of strategical way which are really important for taking or for reaching their interest. So that would be the main point. I'm sure like that I will link with the point that you already talked. So the question is here. I mean, when you are talking, I mean, when you're looking the title, the power of bonding or non-Western great powers, soft power strategy. Basically, in every part, it's a purely academic concept. But well, I'm sure, like end of our discussion, it will be much more clear. So why we used or why we need to rethink the new concept in international cooperation and even also in international politics, why we need to rethink that there is also different kind of international relations in non-Western countries. So I mean, one thing is very clear, if I'm not wrong, especially when we're looking the non-Western, so it basically very profound or deeply clear that we are emphasizing on non-Western countries. But understanding that issue, we have to come first the some idea that is so important to understand the idea that I will discuss later. So let's come to this point that you asked about the soft power, smart power, and hard power. So we have to come up a little bit in a history. I mean, we have to look like not a so background or origin of different perspective of the history. Rather, we can talk something related which are really related with our discussion. That is, Cold War, because to understand this kind of idea, the Cold War is a really important thing for us. So let's come to this point. I mean, the Cold War. What do we mean, like when we're talking the Cold War? Well, we know this is as simply. I mean, by our simple discussion, it's very clear the Cold War happened between the Soviet Union and the USA. So it basically happened most of the time that both countries or both uh, entities, partners or allies. So in some places it happened because of, let's say, like for the sake of the different kind of proxy war or different kind of interest. It could be about economic interest, it could be about political interest, security interest, or cultural interest. Now the issue has been raised, I mean, especially the thing what we're talking, the soft power, it had been raised in 1919. It means the time is very important. It was the time of the fall of Cold War, or we can say the fall of German Wall, or we can say that the rise of the westernization of international cooperation, or rise of Western hegemony, or rise of Western power in the world politics. So that the time, the one of the scholar, we can say the one of the prominent scholar like Joseph Nye, he's a Harvard University professor. He firstly coined this idea, just as simply like only 3 pages. He wrote a one thing, the soft power, and he just emphasized like, okay, why the America or USA they need to rethink their foreign policy. Look, we are talking about like nearly 40 years before. There are time when a professor who is talking and who is giving a suggestion to a foreign ministry, or let's say like to a American nation to rethink their foreign policy and to collaborate and to make their foreign policy, which can be or which could be much more soft, much more attractive, much more engagement oriented. So why he was emphasizing this thing? I mean, from his perspective, especially from his theoretical and literature understanding, he was very clear. He was trying to say during the Cold War time, USA they emphasized so much on hard power. Hard power means like they focused more on military engagement. They focused more on force-oriented issue. They went to some countries and they showed their power. They showed like, okay, we are powerful country. They tried to engage in Cuba in 1962. They engage in Afghanistan in 19, let's say like from the 1979. They involved in South and North Korea's problem and entities any conflict. They involved in Vietnam, let's say with the proxy war between North and South Vietnam. They involved, I mean, like from Southeast Asia to East Asia to the Latin America, they involved all of the things were particularized or were designed for hard power is entity or hard power interest. But in 1990, this scholar who actually later worked also in a foreign ministry's different position, even also in a defense ministry different position in US. He worked with the Obama administration. Even also he worked in a Clinton administration to some extent. However, so he suggests like, okay, we have to find out something different. We have to find out like in what way we can make a more cooperation with the other world, how we can influence the public people, how we can target them, and what would be our interest to or by influencing them. Then he said, like, okay, the soft power that could be the one way in that we can engage with other country. And then he again, I mean, like find out these things. For example, he said, soft power. Then what we will emphasize more? Then he said, like, okay, let's say like our Hollywood movie that could be the one of the most interesting part to engage with different countries. If we want to look a little bit back, I mean, before 1990 and after 1950, the time, I mean, especially this 40 years or less like the after the Second World War to the till to the Cold War time or end of the Cold War, it was a time that America basically developed so many of their tools to engage with the world, which was more focused, especially from the Hollywood movies, let's say. It was more kind of, let's say, I mean, more propaganda based. But after
Right.
1990, they changed this thing. They changed, oh, okay, I mean, like, we have to change this idea from propaganda to public diplomacy. So, for
Okay.
example, let's say, like, propaganda, when we hear the word propaganda, it looks like it's a negative word. So, when someone, let's say, people from Bangladesh or people from Pakistan or people from India, when they watch a movie or any kind of cultural tools, music, dance, or we can say like even the English itself a language or any kind of media news, let's say for example CNN or we can say ABC, Fox News, whatever it is. So what kind of interaction we have, that's what he said, like, okay, that's all of the interaction, this all of the things we must utilize a new formula. We must say like, okay, it is not a something that is a propaganda, rather we can say it's a part of the soft power, it's a part of the attraction. Because let's say like, okay, I'm a Najmul Islam or your engineer Naeem or someone XYZ, why they're watching CNN? Because they love CNN, because they think CNN is giving us more truth or true or factual information,
Right.
or I mean somehow they attracted by CNN. Why I'm watching Hollywood movie? Because I'm attracted by Hollywood movie. So
Mm-hmm.
his argument was that, I mean, let's say like, okay, USA, they have Hollywood industry, they have media house, they
Mm-hmm.
have cultural many entities. So
All
now
right.
government should give more money to these kind of entities or these kind of tools rather than military products. For
Mm-hmm.
example, let's say USA, they may have $500. Let's say, for example, I mean, $500 for military products. So
Mm-hmm.
in his opinion, he said like, okay, for the soft power instruments, USA may can invest at least $250. I mean, for
All right.
example, it's something like we have to invest more money for soft power entity, then we can make a more attraction to the people, especially in non-Western world. So that was
All
his
right.
argument, and he was saying like, okay, hard power. That was we normally do. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
are normally investing in military, investing in, let's say, for example, in a weapons industry. We are investing in a military industrialization, those kind of
All right.
products. So it is better for us to focus something on soft issues, because in
Right.
that way we can convert people's idea. We
All
can
right.
develop our idea in that way. XYZ will love us, and
All
they
right.
will love us because we are not forcing them. They will
All right.
love us because they love us with attraction, without any force, without any hegemony. And I mean, this project was quite successful from 1990 to till now. It is one of the successful project. I mean, we can say that all of the liberal entities, what we are seeing in all over the world. Let's say if
Mm-hmm.
we want to take example, American Education Center. We can take example the British Council. We can take say the example of many NGOs, for example.
All right.
We talk about the civil society. We can talk about I mean any kind of project who is somehow linked for the interest of some group or some country. Let's say like, okay, for example, women empowerment. Of course, it's a very important thing, but if it is coming from X country or Y country's funded project, so basically it is to some extent or somehow it is helping for that country's interest. And why that country is doing such thing? Because they have soft interest in that particular country. So this is the soft and hard power. Let's come to the smart power.
All
Smart
right.
power is more new concept. Even it was also developed by the same scholar, Joseph Nye. He basically said like, okay, I mean, we should not put ourselves in this periphery. I mean, like there is a two periphery. One is hard power and soft power. Rather,
Right.
we have to find out something in between. And he basically emphasized this concept for great powers. So, who are the great powers? Let's say, I mean, for our just basic understanding, we know there's the powers who have a military power, who have economic power, or who have a political power. So these are the three things to make a country like they are. They can tell us like, okay, we are great powers. Of course, in a recent times, especially in the last 5 years, it has been changed. We can say the media or technology, information science. It is also the part of the great powers. But
Right.
basically, these three things. I mean, politics, military, and economy. So let's come to this point. And he said, like, for the great powers, to make only soft power is so difficult because, like,
Mm-hmm.
if any country, let's say like Turkey, let's say for example, France, or let's
Mm-hmm.
even USA, if they only focus on liberal things, let's say okay, to promote democracy, to promote human rights, to promote equality, it's quite difficult things to gain their interest. So they need also the hard power things. They need to
All right.
go to some countries that we have seen during the war on terror project from 2001 to till now even. And
Mm-hmm.
also we have seen the American different kind of attacks in all over the world, whatever it is in Afghanistan or in Iraq or in, I mean, in any other country, secretly or I mean, directly, whatever it is. I mean, they have this policy like hard power. So he said, okay, let's make a new idea, new way of engagement, and that is smart power. We can use our soft power tools and we can use our hard power tools. And both tools, we can establish our interest. We can gain our interest from that particular country. I mean, which country can be the good example for us? For example, American foreign policy in South Korea. In
All
South
right.
Korea, American culture have a huge influence. I mean, it's not only the South Korea. We can talk the Japan. We can talk even the India, for example. We can talk even the Bangladesh. We can talk the Pakistan almost every country, whatever we want or not, we have influence from USA because of their soft power influence. It's a
Right.
cultural attraction. It's an attraction by their Hollywood movies. It's an attraction by their fashion. It's an attraction because of their music. It's an attraction because of their media. But on the other hand, is it enough for USA to gain their security interests? No, they need more things. So that's what we have seen so far. Let's say in Pakistan, they want more security goal in there. They need more military interest in there. They need
Mhm.
more defense interest in there. And that's why the same scholar, he said, look, okay, let's then use the term the smart power. So if you are smart as a country, then make your policy like a smart policy. You have a soft policy and you have a hard policy, and in that way you can engage with other country for the sake of your interest. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we have got a very clear idea about these three different kind of powers, and I think it's very interesting to identify these three terms, which are literally even unknown to me. Thank you for clarifying this idea to the audience as well as to me. Now, I'd like to ask you the next question. That would be very interesting too, and that is, what does it mean, like non-Western international relations and non-Western emerging soft powers strategy, particularly in the context of Middle East and emerging powers like China, India, Turkey, Iran, Singapore, Qatar, UAE, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Pakistan.
Okay.
What does it mean to them?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, indeed. I mean, that's the my part basically, because
All right.
when I was talking about the main idea of soft power or smart power or hard power, it was basically the idea of the Joseph Nye, and of course many scholars from both West and non-West, both I mean, especially from around the world, they talk about that issue. But when I was working, I mean, I worked in this issue nearly 8 years to develop a new thing. I mean, develop a new things means I will not just say like, okay, it's a fully new, because
Mhm.
one of the main, or we can say that like one of the great scholar in this area, like non-Western international relation, is Amitabh Acharya. He's actually originally from Indian, but he's working in a US in American university. So he basically developed this idea, non-Western international relations. So it was very catchy idea, like why we need non-Western. I mean, we already exist in international cooperation. We already have an idea. We can develop everything. What a scholar from Harvard University said, what a scholar from, let's say, like, okay, some scholar from the West to develop some idea, we can take their philosophy. Am I right? I mean, it's a normal thing. But the question is here, why we need to think a philosophy from West, what is so much or purely Western hegemony based philosophy? Why
All
you
right.
should not think something that is exist in our roots, especially let's say, for example, why we need to think a Kenyan foreign policy or Somalia, let's say, or even the Bangladesh foreign policy from the Bangladesh's perspective. Why we are not thinking, let's say, like, okay, the cooperation and collaboration, the roots of the entity, the roots of the cooperation from the Chinese perspective, because China is not following the American style of foreign policy. India
Right.
is not following the American style of foreign policy. They have their own interests. They have their own ideas. They have their own kind of, let's say,
Philosophy.
cooperation.
Right.
Exactly. So we need to think this thing. We need to think like, okay, what's the problem in here? And it's not something, some methodological problem. It's all about the ontological and epistemological problem.
All
So
right.
basically, we need to go to the roots of the knowledge, what it comes. I mean, I don't want to prolong our speech because it will take too much time to talk the Western philosophy. But
Mhm.
for just a simple understanding, I'm sure like who have a little bit background from international relations,
Mhm.
they have always this idea, like the West. I mean, international relations means it's actually Western Eurocentric international relations. So what does
Mhm.
it mean? Let's say like, okay, we are starting our department or our discourses from the idea of, let's say like, okay, the what happened during the Enlightenment time. So we are taking example, let's say basically from the John Locke, or maybe Immanuel Kant, or maybe, I mean, the scholars from the Enlightenment time. I mean, even also, I mean, if we go a little bit back, then again we have to take most of the examples maybe from Machiavelli, or maybe Hobbes, or
Mhm.
maybe, I mean, again, these are the Western scholars who define the state system, who define the interest, who define the history, who define the civilization. And that's a very big problem. I mean, because the way, let's say, like hopes defined was, I mean, let's say the European uh, interest or European system,
Mhm.
maybe that's not the same way we need to understand the India's interest. Maybe
Mhm.
that's not the same way we need to understand the rise of China. That's
Mhm.
not the same way we need to understand that the emerging great powers like India, like China. What is their, I mean, great powers' interest? Why they want something in a different way? Do they really have a different thing? So that's the main question has come. I mean, raised in my idea. Even also, I wrote a book. I hope it will come very soon. And that's the main idea that I discuss in that book, like say the non-Western emerging soft power or emerging power, soft power strategy. And also I develop a new idea that I will talk later. So let's come to non-Western again. I mean, the non-Western, when we're talking, they let's say like, who are those non-Western countries? I mean, for example, let's say like, I mean, we know in the recent times, I mean, there are many countries, I mean, who are rising. It's not only because of economy, they're rising in militarily, they're rising
Mhm.
in politically, they're rising in a science, in a technology, in artificial intelligence, in an algorithm. I mean, all of the things somehow they are showing their footstep. So who are those countries? For example, I mean, I think Turkey could be a really, really great example. Let's say that
Mhm.
Turkey, in a recent times, if we take the last 4 to 5 years, Turkey, they showed their footstep in different way, especially like say by engaging in multiple war, let's say in Syria, in Libya, in Nagorno-Karabakh, in, I mean, Azerbaijan, and also in, I mean, to deploy military in Qatar, and also to make a military base in Somalia, and also, I mean, to have their footstep in Ukraine. So it's a huge thing, basically. I mean, Turkey, they showed that, okay, I mean, of course, there is a Western hegemony, but we can show our footstep in our own way. Now, come to this question. I mean, is Turkey making a hegemony in these countries? The answer is no, because let's say how the no. For example, let's talk the Somalia. Turkey established a military base. It looks like it's a hard power thing. Am I right? I mean, Turkey make a military base in a country, and it's a negative things. I mean, especially from the Western perspective. Let's imagine. I mean, if USA they develop or they establish a military base in Afghanistan or in
Mhm.
Iraq or in XYZ country, it is always negative. I mean, the from the world perspective and from that particular country's perspective, they are always criticize their system. They said like, okay, USA is coming to there or here to colonize us, to occupy our land. But if you come to this Turkish perspective, it is not something like that. I mean, Turkey is totally welcoming by Somalian people, Somalian government. They give the permission and they give this everything. Even Turkey is giving training to everything to that particular country. Even come to them in Libya, there's the same way you will find. Even the most interesting example, that all of the Western countries, especially Western Europe and North American countries, they're giving a huge money to Ukraine. Am I right? But if you look, I mean, the Ukraine, that's the country, even the soldiers, the people, it is available even on YouTube. You will see
Mhm.
they made a song for Turkish, let's say, Bayraktar. So Bayraktar is actually a tool of hard power. I mean, it's a tool of military, it's a tool of hegemony. But you see, the people are really love this thing. People are attracted by Bayraktar. Bayraktar is, this is a UAV, it's a one drone, let's say. But it's a drone to kill people. I mean, to kill, let's say, like not the people, I mean, to kill the
The
party who is
opponents.
involved in a war, let's say. But it's a weapon, by the way. But
Mhm.
how, I mean, if Turkish perspective or even the Ukraine perspective, it's a kind of soft power. It's a
Mhm.
kind of attraction. So that's the
Mhm.
interesting thing Turkey developed in this world politics. And apart from that, if we talk about the humanitarian interaction, let's say, for
Mhm.
example, why Turkey in a Rohingya? I mean, like to help them millions of dollars. Why? What is their interest there? Why Turkey is less like during the flood time in Japan or in Philippines, for example? Because it's all about, I'm not talking like, okay, I mean, I can criticize even the thing, but the issue is here. I mean, why they engage with this issue? Because they have foreign policy interests. They want to
Mhm.
show our image is like a humanitarian face of their foreign policy, humanitarian face of their country. Let's come to the Qatar, for example. Qatar is one of the countries, let's say, like to make a different kind of soft power face in the world politics. Let's say even the whole issue of the Taliban in Afghanistan. You know that we already know the history. Just for simply the diplomatic phase of Qatar, what they did so far is the real phase or real example of soft power. Let's come to the South Korea. It's a more interesting. I mean, South Korea in recent times, they're earning, I mean, it's a one of their, top earning source. That is their cultural products. Let's say I mean, I don't know, I mean, the popularity of South Korean movies in Bangladesh, but I can tell you, like in the Middle Eastern countries, including Turkey. For example, even a movie which is, let's say, like somehow broadcasted a day within a just hour, it is translated in this, I mean, in the particular, let's say, Arabic or Turkish language. So it is actually the example of soft power. Even also, I forget to talk about the Turkish cultural entity. Let's say, for example, Ertugrul. More than, I mean, 150 countries now, watch this Turkish TV series like Ertugrul, just only one series. And why we say like it's a power? Because it is a phase of cooperation. Let's say I can give you an example. It was in 2011 when a Turkish president, I mean, he was Abdullah Gül. I mean, during that time, he went to the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and he had a meeting with the different, entities of Arab Emirates. And before the meeting, some minister of that country, they started to talk. Oh, Mr. President, I mean, I watched that TV series. It was named, Gomush. I think I don't know in English what is name, but it's a Gomush, and also other is a Noor, for example. It was so popular during that time in 2011, and they then started. I mean, it was just the when you are started to talk the cultural things, it makes much more easy to talk to others. I mean,
Right.
to talk the so hard issues like military issues, interest oriented issues, it's always difficult because you have to negotiate with them. But when you start with these soft issues, then it's much more easy. You can talk about the touristic issue, you can talk about the media issues, you can talk about the film, you can talk about the movies. So that's a good way to start the talk, I mean, to start the negotiation. So it was a good example. I mean, just not that one. I mean, if you see the recent times, Erdogan, for example, to have a many relations with different countries, like in Venezuela, the president of the Venezuela, and also many other countries, he has a good relation because they are so much fan of Turkish culture. So it is one of the tool of the Turkish way to make their relations. And I'm talking about, I was talking about the South Korea. I mean, South Korea, you see about the K-pop. I mean, of course, in our Bangladesh, somehow it's it has a negative impact. But if we see that from the global perspective, it is giving us South Korea huge placement to make the relations. K-pop means we can talk about the BTS. Let's say for the sake of BTS, now South Korea have much more placement in international relations, in international cooperation. And let's talk about the Malaysia, Indonesia, especially even the Singapore, for example. Those countries, if you see, let's say for the sake of in Singapore, it's a model country, especially for the economic model or even their investment model, even the country's infrastructure. It's a one kind of model, and this way they established to the world politics. Look, we have something different, and it is working as a tool of their power or power of relations. And let's go to the even also, we can say most, I mean, interestingly, our two neighbors, the one is India, and from the other perspective is Pakistan. I mean, India, of course, we start with India. I mean, India, listen, the Bollywood industry. I mean, probably, I mean, we can talk many negative things from Bangladesh perspective. I mean, but end of the day, it's a cultural impact, cultural attraction they created on XYZ country. I can tell you, I mean, the Bollywood industry's impact on Africa.
Hmm.
The whole African continent, they are really, really, really fan of Bollywood movies. And to that way, they are known to India. They know about the India and they want to make much more cooperation with India. For example, in the last couple of years, India, through their group, it's called the IPSA group, they invested more than $500 million in just some African countries. And that's one of the strategy of India, let's say, to make a cultural cooperation at first and then invest for economy. So, the soft power basically is just a way of tool to make your relations. So all of these countries, whatever is of India or South Korea or Qatar or Singapore or Turkey, Even let's the Iran, for example, I forget to Iran to talk, and also the Saudi Arabia. Iran, let's say, it's a good entity to see the in their role and their policy in the Middle East. Especially, I mean, from many arguments, we can say like different militia group in Middle Eastern countries, let's say in Iraq or in Syria or in many other Middle Eastern countries, you will see Iran have an influence because of their Shia doctrine and also revolutionary entity. So for them, this Shia doctrine, I mean, the religion card is a part of their soft power because they
Hmm.
want to utilize it, and then they are taking their interest, whatever it is, a security interest or hard power interest. But the first step, what they're doing with those countries or those militia group, let's say Hezbollah, for example. Why Hezbollah has a really good connection with Iran? Is it because of security reasons? Is it because of really hard power? No. The first thing they're doing is a religion. And is it because of like Islam or something? No, it's not all about the Islam. It is all about the Shia ideology, let's say. Or is it
Hmm.
enough for Shia ideology? No, it is the Shia ideology which Iran is applying to their Shia doctrine system. So that's the way they are making their soft relations with the different kind of groups. And also let's talk about like the Saudi Arabia. I mean, I don't want to go further, but it's very simple thing. Like Salafism or Wahhabism, they are all over the world, especially in a Muslim world. It is a soft things uh, for the for the Saudi Arabia. That's the way they are making their connections with different kind of countries, especially in the Muslim countries. I mean, I think like we have seen so many groups in Bangladesh so far, especially the Salafist group or Wahhabist group. I mean, apart from the criticism, apart from the negative understanding, the first thing we need to understand, it is a part of Saudi Arabia's soft power, and
Hmm.
also in Africa, it is much more. How I can say it? I mean, it's much more effective and much more productive to do and to make this kind of Salafism or Wahhabism project that is totally funded by the Saudi Arabia. And why Saudi Arabia is funding this kind of project? Because they want to develop their soft power, their
Right.
way of understanding of Islam. And also
Abs-
we can talk the China, because China is a very big country. I think in a next step we can talk more about the China. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So the very next question that I'd like to ask you is, um, so what I've understood so far that I think the different countries have a kind of different bonding with other countries, and because of different purposes or issues that maybe, and for that they're creating a media, like, and for creating that bonding actually they use different things, like some of them use religion, some of them use some other things. So now it's really important to know that what does it mean, power of bonding, and why it's so important. Not only that, what is the main reason for developing these new concept?
Thank you so much. That's a really more, I think the one of the uh, great question and one of the very important questions for our discussion. And personally, for me, it's very important because I can say easily like that's a totally my. I mean, of course, in our social science, there is no direct patent system. I mean, in a science department, it's very normal. I mean, if you develop something newly, then you can say, "Oh, okay, it's my patent idea." But I can
Right.
say it's my totally my personal idea, and I personally this I mean when I developed this idea, I wrote a book, and now I have two books on this issue, and I have several articles, and both of this book I can say, I mean, it has been published from a renowned publication house, like one published from the Palgrave from the USA, and also another one published is going to be published from the Lexington. It's also the another a category publishing publication house. So that's the way I can say like, okay, it's now one of my idea, the power of bonding. So why I need to develop this idea? That's the main important question. And thank you again, I mean, to ask this thing. So power of bonding, I mean, we have to say, I mean, the three concepts we so far talk. I mean, we talk about the soft power. When we talk about the soft power, we talk about the hard power, we talk about the smart power. And after we talk the non-Western relations or non-Western international cooperation or non-Western great powers, their relations. Now, I think like, okay, apart from these two or other concepts, we need to find out something really new to understand the specific country like China, like India, for example. Why we need to, rethink this new concept? Because I remember, if you remember, we talk about the soft power, and we say that the main ontology of this idea, it is totally Western based. So, for example, let's say when Joseph Nye, he developed this idea, he basically said, oh, okay, we need to make a cooperation with other states because we have Hollywood movie industry. Let's say we have, English is a very, how we can say, very popular and very effective language to communicate in around the world. We can emphasize our media like CNN, for example. But is it enough for the let's say like is this ideas enough to understand Chinese development or Chinese rise, or is it enough for to understand for the India? Because it's just for or totally from the perspective of the West, from the perspective of the US. Then, and also I also criticize, let's say like the exist theories in exist philosophy, let's say, or exist idea in international relations. For example, the realism, or we can say we can talk about the liberalism. That's the most important thing for us. You can talk the constructivism and also Marxism. All of this idea, it's basically discussed the Western countries. If we talk the let's say from the last to the first, if we talk something, I'm talking this four idea because this four idea is more dominant in our especially in a social science discourses. Let's say like the Marxism. Marxism is so popular even also in Bangladesh, even also in many non-Western countries. It's true because somehow it has a many positive impact. But the question is here, the Marx, Karl Marx, he himself, he discussed the whole idea by looking the European that time system. Let's say like the system what he have seen, there is some kind of inequality in the society, and he then developed this idea, let's say bourgeois or proletariat, poor class or working class or rich or elite class people. Then he developed this Marxist idea why we need a more equal system, and he developed his idea based on the let's say like based on the Germany, let's say simply, or is it just Western German? Let's think simply. Why we need to take a concept? Of course, somehow we may need it. It's important to have a collaboration, but in a normal way, why we need something developed based on the Western German to utilize it for the Dhaka, or for the Delhi, or for the Beijing? No, it's totally different entity. The people is different, the culture is different, the cooperation is different, the engagement is different. The total scenario is different. So we have to rethink even the Marxist idea. Let's come to the constructivism. The constructivism is a more new idea. After 1990, it has been developed, and it's a more part of the, even to some extent, it's part of the soft power. So the constructivism, if you look at it, it's just totally based on the identity. But when you are talking, let's say constructivism, many scholars, they say the constructivism is a part of the European identity. So European Union is a good example of constructivism. So yeah, okay, if South Asian countries, let's say SAARC, if they want to be successful, they need to take a European Union as a model. But it's a questionable. European Union, their background, their history, their civilization, their culture is different. And South Asian people, their culture is different. For the Southeast Asia, it's the same thing. For the China, it is also the same thing, because their culture, their civilization, their history, and their identity, that's the most important thing, is totally different. It's not a European identity. Same thing if we go to the, liberalism, the most important thing for us to understand, because the scholar itself, like the Joseph Nye, he developed this soft power as a part of liberal idea. So it's liberalism is a father, and soft power is just children. So it's just the mainly is when we're talking the soft power, we're talking about the human rights. It's a very positive thing, I know, but the human rights from the Western perspective, it's just for the sake of their interest. So they are not talking human rights of, if they have a very good relation with some X or Z country, if they have a bad relation, they will always talk about the human rights issue. And why they talk about that issue? Because it is a part of their foreign policy interest. So this whole thing, even the democracy, for example, I don't need to go or to jump in a very details, but it's very simple. Whenever USA, they need their foreign policy interest, their hard power interest, they always use this kind of soft power tools like democracy, human rights, and in recent times now it's a LGBTQ, for example. So it's all about
women empowerment is one of the biggest issues.
exactly women empowerment, girls education. But I can say, like, I of course I totally agree, human rights, we need human rights, It's very important thing. We
Hmm.
need women empowerment. It's very important thing. We need
Hmm.
girls education. This is really absolutely important thing. We need equality. There is no question. Even the democracy, because it's the best system out of this, including any other system. So that's why we need democracy, because at least we have a right to say by using the democracy. Liberty, for example, we need liberty. We need fraternity. I mean, those kind of things. Even it was established after the French Revolution. So all of this theory, they have a lag. They have a main lag. They talk everything based on Europe, based on West. I mean, this is just all about the problem of philosophy. What philosophy we are taking, what philosophy we are making in a nation-state system, because it has been developed from the West. It has been developed from the Europe, and it's a Eurocentric or Western-centric ideology, Western-centric philosophy, Western-centric idea. So the main problem is there. And now what we need to do then? We need to rethink again. And then the way I think, like, okay, power of bonding that can fill the emptiness or the vacuum of this idea. So next
Hmm.
comes the power of bonding. Power of bonding, which I just started from the ontological way. I mean, ontological way, what does it mean? It means, let's say, I mean, especially my book, I mean, I take the idea of the Chinese development or Chinese foreign relations and also
Hmm.
India's foreign relations. I try to compare their understanding, their ideas, their difference, their comparisons, and I just come up with this idea that both countries, let's say China and India, both countries, they utilize their system, their relations based on their civilization and history. Let's say, so then why it is different from the American style of soft power or American style of cooperation. One thing I can say, like, even I used it in my book. I mean, this example is very prominent, I think. I mean, that would be much more easy for understanding the power of bonding. Let's say the USA, they want to make a good relations with Pakistan or with Afghanistan. This the I mean, it's quite difficult for USA to find a history to make their relations with Afghanistan or Pakistan, because US itself, they are a very new country, and they don't have that much level of civilization. They are basically creating their civilization now, but in a history, they don't have a history, they don't have a civilization. In that way, they can say, like, okay, we want to make our relations based on our civilization or based on our historical cooperation. But let's take the Turkey, for example, or I will talk the China. Let's talk Turkey first. I mean, Turkey,
All
if
right.
they want to make a relations with Bangladesh, even if they want to
Hmm.
make a relation with Pakistan, what they are trying to take example, they are talking about the 500 years of history. They're
Hmm.
talking 800 years of history. They're
Hmm.
talking, oh, okay, look, our civilization. We have a very common civilization.
Hmm.
Once upon a time, the Babur, he was a Turk, and he went to a country, and that's the way the let's say the Mughal Empire or Babur Empire, it was established there. And
Hmm.
also, let's say, like, talking about the Ikhtiaruddin Bakhtiar Khilji, he was also the background from the Turk, and that's the way the Turkey, they can make a good relations with the India, I mean, South Asian continent, especially that subcontinental relations, whatever it's the Indian Muslims or the Pakistan or the Bangladesh. So that's the, I mean, history and civilization works here so profoundly. And also, let's come to the China. We know
Hmm.
China, they started especially from their dynasty or civilization. It's a 5,000 year civilization, and for USA to think even that civilization is very difficult. I met with many diplomats, especially from the China, and one thing I found, you know um, that's really interesting. One thing that I found there, uh, when you asked any Chinese scholar or Chinese diplomat, even the politicians, if you ask them, like, okay, what do you think to be a superpower, to be a, I mean, to make yourself like you are really powerful nations in compare with USM, then they say, no, we don't have any quickness or hurriedness. I mean, we can be, I mean, wait. I mean, because why you want wait? I mean, you see the USA, they are disturbing you, or they want to, I mean, they want to somehow destroy your country's economy or politics or whatever it is. They said, okay, it's okay, no problem, we can wait. Why we can wait? Because we know how to wait. We have a 5,000 years of history, and we know how to rule the world. There is a very interesting book that is published in the last year. It was
Hmm.
published by one of the professor from Cambridge University. Her name is Aisha Zarakol. She's actually based Turkish, but working at Cambridge. Her book name is The Before the West. So the overall argument of her book is that the before the West there was exist world order. I mean, let's say before the 200 years before, if you go even also in Southeast Asia, especially in the whole Chinese region, it's East Asia, you will see the order in there. There were community, there were this, let's say, like, what they say, like, this belt road, that's what we have seen so far. There were exist system, there were economic, good economic system, they have all kinds of infrastructural things. And what was happened before the 200 years before in West, it was just a war. We can say like a 100 years war between the French and England. We see the 30 years war between the Germany and French. We see that, even the Austria, all of the things, even just go to back to the 50, 60, 70 years before, it is just a big wars happen in there, because they have a lack of understanding of civilization, lack
All
of
right.
understanding of history, even the positive history. But if you come to here, the China, even, there's interesting thing. I talked with a diplomat, who was working in Turkey as an ambassador, and he said very interesting thing. He said, like, they even before, during our King Ming dynasty, because it was a very longer dynasty in the Chinese history, we never have any problem, any conflict with the Persian civilization. Let's say,
Mhm.
like, Sassanid Empire, or those, empire, what was happening or during the Persian civilization. We never had this problem. We never had any conflict. These are two empires. See, here is a Chinese civilization and here is a Persian civilization, but they never fight with each other. They don't have any big war. How it was happened? Even this is the same thing for Indus civilization. India's civilization. Rare case you'll find, even, the Mughal Empire, they were there for 500 years nearly, but you'll never see like they had a big fight with the Chinese Empire. Maybe they
Mhm.
have a some little conflict, but not the same way what we have seen between, let's say, like Germany or UK, or UK and France, or many other European entities, because it was very same for them. Like when we were talking, even the French or UK, that's a good example. Let's say French and UK, when they're making their cooperation with other countries, think about, like, the French, they want to make a good cooperation with the North African countries like Tunisia, Algeria, or let's say Morocco. What they will find in a history, it's just a colonialism. They killed hundreds, thousands of people from Algeria. They have a very negative history. In that history, they cannot build up civilization. The same thing
Mhm.
for UK. They can't talk like civilization by coming to the India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, because they don't have a civilization in here. What they
Mhm.
have is a negative or black history of the world, so
Mhm.
history. Now come here. Now again, like power of bonding. That's the main thing. Bonding. I explained this. Bonding is based on history and civilization, and that history and civilization forced to make the political, economic, and cultural connection. So
All
now
right.
let's say, like, if the China and Turkey, that could be, China and Iran, that could be the good example, because in the first book I also talk about these two countries. There's a China. I just analyzed last 10 years of their diplomatic relations, what
Mhm.
their diplomats said, what their foreign minister said when they came to the Iran, and also the same thing for the Iran when they went to the China, what kind of things they talk. I took
Mhm.
their all of these speeches, and I make some coding analysis, and I just took the specific word, how many times they use the history, how many times they use the civilization, how
Mhm.
they want to make their relations with each other. And interestingly, I found this thing, whatever, whoever their leaders are coming, if it is the Xi Jinping or the
Mhm.
foreign minister, even the same thing for Iran, if it is a Khamenei or whoever, when they are sitting with each other, they first start with the historical things. They say, like, okay, we are historically brotherly country. Even you see that the same thing in a Turkish foreign policy interest, or for foreign policy strategy.
All
You'll see
right.
the same thing for India. Let's say, like, for India, let's say whenever they will come to Bangladesh, whoever the leaders, the first thing they start with the freedom of our freedom, let's say liberation war. Listen, because that history is the main bonding for India. It's an Indian interest in here. By that way, they want to establish. Look, we did this thing in a history, for example, and that's why you have to do everything, whatever, let's say, like, whatever our interest in here, and that's the way they are making their power in here. That's the way they are making their doctrine in here. The same thing, even also many other countries, that's the way, I mean, especially non-Western countries, they base their relation based on these things, this history and civilization, and that history and civilization link up with the political cooperation, economic partnership, and also cultural attributions. Because let's say in a recent time, why Turkey is making so many TV series based on the history, because they want to show to the whole world, especially Muslim world, we have a very historical cooperation. Why we need to make everything based on our nation state? Let's do some apart from this nation state. In this way, we can make our win-win cooperation rather than the Western way of international cooperation. Anyway, I mean, I
Thank
hope
you.
so enough.
All right, thank you. So I think in short, I think we could come to a conclusion like that. That actually, the power of bonding is something that creates the path to dominate a country by using all the ingredients that they have. Like it could be culture, it could be their thoughts, their security issues, all these things. So uh, it actually creates a path for any country to create.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's for any country, but basically it's focused more on non-Western countries, or we can
right.
say the more emerging power countries. So,
Mhm.
I mean, there is an interesting thing. I mean, I think that when you say the Middle East is basically middle power.
All
So
right.
middle powers, I mean, who are the middle powers? Let's say middle power, Turkey can be the middle powers, but in a
Mhm.
regional level, they can be regional powerful countries.
All right.
But from the world politics, it's a middle power, let's say. And also, let's say Qatar is a middle power,
Mhm.
Iran is a middle power country,
Right.
and China is a great power country, let's say. So
Okay.
these countries, they are trying to make their own style of powerful relations, own
Sure.
style of bonding. And what kind of, I mean, relation they are, I mean, they took the idea, it is their bonding from the history, bonding from their civilization. And that's the way they are making this multiple world. There's a
All right.
making, I mean, now the scholar, especially some scholar, they're talking more on multiplex world war system.
Right.
So in a
Mhm.
multiplex, you are not talking only about your cooperation based on your economy and politics.
Mhm.
Rather, you are making your call. Let's say, like for example, X country, I have a problem. I have a military conflict, but it doesn't mean like I will have a problem of internet. Maybe
All
mine,
right.
let's say it's a very common for USA. USA, they
Mhm.
may have many problems with many countries, but still
Mhm.
they have, you see, the scientific cooperation. They have
Mhm.
a relations like a technological cooperation. They
Mhm.
have a relations like a, I mean, even there's a www, like internet things. I mean, many countries they have a problem with USA, but still they need to use the American made
Internet
different
connection.
kind of system. So that's the thing we need to. I mean, we need to see in a multiplex world system, or
Mhm.
multipolar world system, because now we have seen in a world politics, it's not a bipolar. I mean, two powerful state, or it's not a
Mhm.
unipolar. Just only country is a very, or she's a hegemonic country. No, there is no system like that. Now it's a more, we can say, I mean, multipolar world system or multiplex. Many countries they have many things so different or so powerful rather than even the hegemonic country.
I think power is maybe, what can I say, decentralized or
Exactly, exactly,
divided in, or maybe in different countries, in different cases. Thank you. So the
exactly.
last question that I'd like to know from you is, could you please discuss about exploring and reading power, culture, nation branding, image building, globalization and public diplomacy in foreign policy, and international relations and global politics?
Again, thank you so much. I mean, of course, I mean, I think if we come from the first question to the last question, all of the things is interrelated.
All right.
So interrelated by what means? Because one thing we are very common, one thing we are talking, that is simply, let's say, like, we are talking mostly on a country's interest, how
Mhm.
a country they can gain more from or in the power system.
Mhm.
Because why we need policy? Because we want earn more money. Why we
Mhm.
need this system? Because we want more cooperation. Why we
Mhm.
need more cooperation? Because in that way we can make our country more
Mhm.
powerful, or
Mhm.
more developed, or
All right.
more economical. I mean, that's the strategy. So I mean, a country, they need a philosophy. I mean, they need an idea.
Okay.
Without philosophy or without idea, I mean, there are no country can be in a position. Let's say, like, okay, I mean, from my, let's say now it's almost 50 minutes. Out of these 50 minutes, mostly maybe I criticize the West. I said, like, okay, the West, we have a lack. I mean, we cannot take everything from the West. But if we come this point, I mean, this is a positive thing. We have to also give a thanks to the West, because West, what they're trying to make to the world politics by developing their civilization now. Let's say,
Hmm.
like, for example, we can say that many negative things from the democracy, as I said earlier. But again, the democracy still is the best system in the world system. And it is now, we have to take example the democracy from the many Western countries. We have to show like to the world, like, okay, if we want to give a model of democracy, we have to show maybe Norway. We have to show, let's say, Denmark. We have to show, let's say, like even to some extent, United Kingdom. We have to show France. We have to show Germany, let's say. So in this
Hmm.
way, they are making their civilization, and it's a positive thing. I mean, that's the way they are making the soft relation. They are making their, branding their country. Let's say, like, okay, I mean, yes, you can criticize us. USA, they can say, like, yeah, of course, you have a right to criticize. Even this right to criticize, that's the positive thing of the West. There's a many countries in the world system. I mean, if you criticize that particular country, you will never go to that country. I
Hmm.
mean, many countries around the world, and that many countries is mostly from the non-Western countries. So it's a
Hmm.
negative thing. We cannot say like it's a positive. In this way, they are not branding their country. But
Okay.
however, I mean, so that's the positive things from the West even. I mean, they are branding their country by their own tools, by their own mechanism, by their own instruments. So human rights, yes, we can criticize the black and what's the name, the white problem or civil problem in US, but still in compare with many nations in the world system, still we have to give her many thanks, like, okay, they are struggling. I mean, especially black people, if you read the 18th or 19th history of the black people rights, we can find out very interesting thing. I mean, like what they did during that time and what they're living now, it's totally different. So
Hmm.
it means that they gained. I mean, they gained by their, by fighting with even the American system, and
Hmm.
America did it finally. So it's a positive thing for America. By the way, they established, like, okay, now in USA, it's more diaspora-based country. Many nations they can come here and they can stay here. But
All
now
right.
we can say, like, okay, if other countries, let's say for example, even a country, for example, even China, for example, even India. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a very far behind from this understanding. Let's say,
Hmm.
like, you have access for global citizens, let's say, to have these things. I mean, compare with even the Western nation, to have
Hmm.
a more development or more access in science and technology. What XY people from the non-Western country they can gain from the Western country,
Hmm.
but it's quite difficult they can gain from the, let's say, even the China or from India. So, however, that's not the point. The point is here, every country they should find out some of the tools to make their country like a branding country, like, they can develop their image. They can say,
Right.
like, okay, this is our brand. I mean, this is the way we are branding our nation. It's a
Hmm.
basically, the business idea. I mean, basically, marketing or finance student, they are starting this national branding from the perspective of, let's say, I mean, a nation, let's say Germany, they can brand themselves by their car. They have Mercedes, they have what we consider what's the name? I mean, Polo, let's say. I mean, many kinds of car branding, and also many other countries they have different kind of brands. So let's say for Bangladesh, let's say how they can brand themselves. They need to find. Let's say if we have only touristic places, so we have to brand ourselves by our tourism sector. If we have our, let's say, like, any culture that's really really attractive, so we have to brand our culture to the world politics. Let's say, for example, I mean, we know we have a different kind of debates in our country, especially Tablighi Jamaat. Listen, but this is from the state's interest. I mean, I'm not talking about the religious scripture or religious fact. That's not my field. I'm not expert on that issue, but I can say, like, the whole idea of Istima from the national strategy, it can be the soft power, because in this way you are attracting more Muslim people from around the world. You are telling to them, like, okay, there is just something happening in my country, and it can be even the source of income, source of tourism
Right.
income, source of, let's say, like, different kind of religious understanding. I mean, so
Right.
that's the Bangladesh's soft power. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking, let's say, like, it's just only one way. We have also many other opportunity to develop our own style of soft power.
Right.
And the same way, let's say, like, nowadays I think that India, that's the way they are building up their own soft image. You see, as a neighbor, we know the many things, many negative things from the India, and also on our country. But if you look from the international political space, international political landscape, or let's say environment, you'll see one thing is very common, that India is built up. They are one of the largest democratic country. They are the most how we can say the diversified country, and they have a Hindu civilization. And even the Hindutva or those kind of radical idea, they
Right.
establish it in a different way. Let's say it's a some philosophical idea. It's
Right.
a positive things. They are
Sure.
trying to establish it as a country's face value. So why they are doing such thing? Because they have different kind of interests. Why they are to? I mean, let's say like how I mean also they're doing this. This is a Bollywood movie. I mean, most
Hmm.
of the time before making their foreign policy, you will see that those things are coming first in the movie sector, in a
Right.
cultural sector, and
Hmm.
culture is making these things more soft. In
Hmm.
that way, people will understand. Oh, okay, I saw these movies. I saw that movies. Even I can tell you. I mean, we remember once upon a time we had a very good meeting in a Turkey with a ambassador from South Asian countries. And in that meeting, some of the students they're asking to a ambassador from Pakistan, like, okay, we saw a movie from Bollywood, and we saw you are the hub of the terrorism, and all of the terrorists are living in a Pakistan, and you are just doing a very nasty things in India. So I mean, this that for movie is very normal thing. I mean, you can show. I mean, you can do many things, but somehow if you have a target, if you have a, let's say like, oh, okay, I want to make this thing because I want to change a public opinion, I want to change the young people, then it's a successful tool. And it's a successful tool used by the Hollywood. I mean, once upon a time. Now China, for example, China, they also develop like their own some film industry. Let's say China hood. It's also in Chinese language. There's a hate hood, if I'm not wrong. So they are developing this thing, and in a recent time, Chinese movies is also so popular. And through their Chinese movie, you will see the most of the thing China is trying to establish their kung fu, their history, their civilization, their different kind of dynasty, kingdom system. Even the same thing in a Korea. They're trying to show their own history. I talked already about Turkey. So this all of the things, it's just a strategy. It's a strategy to build your face, to build your image, to build your soft face in the world politics.
Right.
People who want to introduce them, let's say USA, they never want to introduce them like a harsh country, like a hegemonic country. Never they say like, okay, we are so powerful country. They simply want to show to the world's people or public people like we are very soft country, but we have a powerful instruments, like we have a greatest military, we have a these weapons, we have a nuclear power. But no, we don't have that target. We want democracy in your country, we want human rights in your country. They never
Right.
say it. See that in a recent last 2 years, I mean, we know that many things happened with US and Bangladesh, but nobody can show me a single word that's the way someone can say it shows the US use any hard power terms. Let's say like,
Right.
now there are many programs we can use the qualitative information in a quantitative way, and that's what we say in social science, computing social science. So basically you can making a coding. So let's say like you can, I mean, we can use the any powerful word. I mean, powerful means hard power word. In the last 2 years, any diplomat, any citizen even from the USA, do they use any kind of powerful word? I cannot say that exactly, but I can say that more than 98% you will never find anything like that. They are always using the soft things, and that's the way they are making their relations. That's the way they are making their power. That's the way they are making their hegemony. So that's what we need to understand, like that the why soft power is important. No country, even the Russia. This is a more
Right.
interesting thing. Russia, to many of our eyes, Russia is a very harsh country. Russia is like, I mean, they have a huge or super military. They can do many things. But in recent war with Ukraine and Russia, one thing is very common. One thing is very understandable. Russia want to use more public diplomacy rather than, let's say like, the hard power. They never said like, we're so powerful we can destroy the whole Ukraine. No, they rather use their RT, that the Russian television is Sputnik. They use many of their contents over the YouTube, and that's why you see the RT is Sputnik. Any contents from the Russian government funded is totally prohibited in Facebook, in YouTube. They block them. They said they are just making propaganda. So
Hmm.
it's also another kind of Western hegemony. There's the but that's the another discussion. Maybe the next any times we may have that discussion. Let's say like, is soft power is a good thing? I mean, in a recent time, I'm working on a project. It's something, the soft power. Is it a new colonial project again?
All
So
right.
basically, this the we can talk the China. I talk many positive things. Let's say the China, for example, they have their own media industry. Very big media. Let's say CGTN, CCTV, and also their Xinhua. It's a very popular media. They have more than 37 medias who are working just targeting for the international people. In China, even the most of the Chinese projects in the Western countries, let's say in Harvard University, in Chicago, in MIT, most of the universities, Chinese-oriented projects is totally funded by the China. Somehow Chinese different institute or Chinese government. In King College London, if you go to the China different kind of projects work from the China, it's just funded by somehow Chinese government. So from the Chinese perspective, it's a soft power. But why China is doing this? Let's say the China, they have now military base in Djibouti. They have a huge investment in Somalia, especially in Somaliland. They have an investment in Ethiopia. They have an investment in most of the African countries. Even they have interesting, very good investment in Germany, in Italy, in even the Greece. They are building more than 5 ports in Greece. They also are doing the very deep collaboration with Turkey to build up their infrastructural things. Let's say like especially the Istanbul Canal. That's what will happen in Istanbul. It's one of the biggest project that Turkey will do, and it's totally funded by probably, funded by the China. So why China is doing this thing? Forget about those countries. If you go to the Pakistan, let's say, the China, they are doing this, the most successful project in Pakistan. Let's say they are building the Gwadar port. It's one of the biggest projects for the, even also in the history of the Pakistan. We can talk like whether it will be successful, whether it will be viable or not. That's another thing, because many Western scholars, they said that China is basically making a debt trap. So China is, whatever China is doing, it has a negative impact. But that's
Mhm.
a lot of things. And that's why I said you, I'm working on something like whether soft power can be a new colonial tools. So
Mhm.
you are just making software because you want to make another colonial industry. But for
Mhm.
now, it is not like that. For now, China, let's say for example, so far from 2007, they established a new tools, new mechanism. It's called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPAC. I have a very good, several articles on that issue, CPAC, how it is working there, and it is one of the main headache for India, because let's say like for even for India, even for the all of the Western interest in Indo-Pacific Ocean. Let's say for example for Australia, for New Zealand, for
Mhm.
Japan, for South Korea, who are regular partner of Western countries. For them,
Mhm.
it is a really terrible things what China is doing there. China,
All right.
as I said, like from 2007 to till now, they are investing nearly $62 billion inside Pakistan. They
All right.
established port, they established the schools, they established the college, they established hospitals. The whole streets they established there. So why they are doing this? Because they want to develop their soft image in there. And for Pakistan, because they don't have any other option, and they need to take these things from China. And from Chinese perspective, they just make a model country for all over the world. You will see whenever a Chinese diplomat they want to see any other country, they're trying to show like, okay, they look Pakistan. Without our investment, without our let's say like the engagement with Pakistan can be the black bailout of country, bailout or failed state. So it is us who did this thing for Pakistan. Even it's not all of the things of the soft power. You see that from the Xinhua, sorry, not the Xinhua, it's what's the name? The East Turkmenistan, especially the Uyghur people who are living in China, the
Mhm.
place, the provinces. That place basically uh, are the main center to make the connections with Pakistan. And from
Right.
that place, China, they made up their relations till to the Gwadar port. Gwadar port is a part of the Indian Ocean. So inside, so China basically previously they made their all of the investment, all of their trade relations from China to the Singapore or sometimes to Malaysia by using the Malacca Strait, and then they can use the Indian Ocean. Then they can go to the Africa and then Arab, Middle Eastern countries, and then to the Europe. But now, by utilizing or by using this direct route from China to Pakistan, it's much more easy and it's much more productive and it's much more economical for China. So it's all about that. The first thing what we need to do, we need to think like in what sort of image we need to build up in that particular country. China, they got that thing and they build up this thing and it helps their interest. Let's say for the Myanmar, it's more interesting for us. I mean, why? I mean, there is a problem in a Rohingya list, especially if you look to the Situ port that is, happen. I mean, that is in a Rakhine state. That port, is a very important for China. China is making an economic zone in there, and China is
Right.
to make scholars. Some scholars they argued that China have a plan to make a military base in there, and that's
All
why
right.
America and their partners they are not happy for Chinese influence in Myanmar, and
Okay.
that's why the USA they need Bangladesh. I mean, we may have a more discussion about that. So that's another issue. But to understand the Chinese soft image, why China want to do this thing in there? I mean, especially in the Rakhine state, because China have a target in the Indian Ocean. You see, if they have a Myanmar, and if they have a let's say, Pakistan, and somehow if they can make a successful project in Bangladesh, then the whole South Asia and even the Southeast Asia is just under the control of China. And now the question is here: are China is doing such kind of things by making hard power? Do they force anyone? Do they force Myanmar government or Pakistani government or even the Bangladeshi government? No, they never. They said like, okay, let's make a business. And even the many scholars, especially it's not me or like other scholars apart from China, it's a Chinese scholar. They said we are doing such thing because for us, economy and export or trade is a soft power. It's our image building. For other countries, let's say, more interesting thing is the UK. I mean, recently one of my student from Germany. So she was talking about the differences between UK and Germany, especially in terms of soft power. And interestingly, what she found, the UK, these are the top countries around the world or in the world who is doing or investing more money or more tools for soft power. In a recent times, if you look to the UK, in rare case you'll find UK is involving with hard power thing. If they involve, let's in recent time, just a couple of months ago, they involve hard power things with USA to make a fight with the Houthi in Yemen. But apart from that, what they're doing in the last 30 40 years, that's all about the soft power. They are trying to invest in a Commonwealth. They are giving Commonwealth scholarship. They are giving a many different kind of scholarship to the civil society members. It's a pretty common thing in Bangladesh. You will see soft power is one of the greatest and successful projects since 1990 or especially after the 2000. If anyone can somehow get a something, let's say if you get a Chevening scholarship or Fulbright scholarship, whether you are so meritorious or whether you are etc or etc, you're automatically identified as a one of the leading scholar or one of the leading elite people in the particular country. So let's say X people from Bangladesh went to the USA under the Fulbright scholarship. Nobody will ask him or anything. He will automatically identified as a very great scholar, as a
Mhm.
great people, as a great person. And why he was identified like that? Because it is not he or she. It is the things of the USA or UK that developed to the world, our eyes. It is just developed by their media. It is developed by their education or university. It is developed because of their world order. The order we are seeing now. Because we are thinking like, oh, someone, if they use or if they get this thing, they're only the elite people. They're only the rich people. They're only the intellectual people. And that's the way they develop this world system. And that's why they want to show like, okay, even apart from that, they're why they are giving this scholarship, because they want to show like, look, we are with you. Even the name Commonwealth, one of my PhD students just recently completed his PhD on especially the England, UK's colonial system. And in his work, it was very interesting. The UK, once upon a time, they have a ministry of colonialism, colonial ministry. And under that ministry, now they transform that ministry as like a Commonwealth. So
All right.
basically, Commonwealth is just a sequences of the colonialism, we can say. So, but now, if I'm sure, like many of us, I'm sure of some many of our even the colleagues who are working at the university or different places, if they go to the UK, they are always identified as a great scholar, but basically they are the tools of the soft power of new
Sure.
colonial phase or new liberal phase. And that's the way it is happening all over the world. And that's what we said is a soft power, because they are not saying to us, oh, okay, I'm giving a scholarship, I'm giving a placement to Naeem because Naeem is a great guy is just so meritorious. No, I mean, I'm giving to him because he'll work for me later. That's
Right.
an, anyway, it's a debating issue. I don't want to just say like in this only short sentence.
Thank,
But this is the outcome. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you very much for your informative discussion. I actually we have got plenty of information that we have no idea about, and I think it's high time for everyone to know all these things. That how basically this world order is moving on or going on or running on, because if you don't have this idea, then it's quite difficult for us to make a better life for the future for the next generation. So yes, I think there are many more things that we could discuss about today, but for the shortage of time, we have to conclude our discussion here today, and we have some more important questions here today that I have got from the comment section. That how could you define Israel and Hamas war? What it is it smart power or hard power or whatever it is? I think it needs one more session for clarifying
Exactly.
this idea. I think if we have, I think more session to, I mean, with you, we will discuss about this, inshallah. By the way, thank you very much for your valuable time that you have spent with us, you have given us, and you have shared your, I think, idea, thoughts that you have researched for many, many years. Thank you for making us, what can I say, conscious about this power. So thanks on behalf of Perspective Magazine as well.
Uh, thank you so much, Nambai, for having me. And I'm sure, I mean, this show is really, really important. I mean, to have this kind of intellectual discussion, I think it's important. I mean, I'm not saying like, okay, what I'm saying is everything is right or everything, but
Mhm.
we need to think those things from the critical perspective, from the critical lens. Otherwise, we cannot develop new things. Otherwise, we can hold just, okay, as I said earlier, what Western philosophy. I mean, we cannot deny the whole philosophy, but we need to rethink, we need to rediscuss, we need to re-explore the things, because otherwise we'll be stagnant. We'll be in an idea what already exists. But to produce new knowledge, we need to have this kind of session. So that's why really, really thanks to the team of the Perspective, and also you and the others who are working smoothly and continuously. Thank you so much for having me again. See you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, dear audience, thanks everyone for being with us for so long. And if you guys are with us, I hope that we are going to give you some more informative session like this. And till then, I think be with us, pray for us, and give us idea that what could be our next topic. That's all for today. Allah Hafiz.